Welcome to the Authority File, the academic library podcast from Choice. Choice is a publishing division of the ACRL and the publisher of Choice Reviews, Resources for College Libraries, and CC Advisor. I'm Bill Mickey, the host of the podcast and the editorial director here at Choice. Well, we're back from our holiday break, and I hope all you listeners are enjoying the new year so far. Here at the Authority File, we're pretty excited for 2019. We've got some new episode formats coming your way, including some live interviews at this year's ACRL conference in Cleveland. We're also lining up some special guest interviews of Choice's outstanding academic title award-winning authors. We've invited some of the Choice reviewers to interview the authors of the OAT titles that they reviewed. Look for the first of those matchups to hit in early February 2019. In the meantime, for this next pair of episodes, we're sitting down with Mary Ellen Davis, the Executive Director of the ACRL. Mary Ellen was here in Connecticut at the Choice offices, so we figured why not grab a few minutes to pop into the Authority File studios and talk about what's coming up for the association. So in this first episode, Mary Ellen and I talk about the ACRL conference coming up in Cleveland in April, and we tease out some of the programming highlights and how those fit into the conference's theme of recasting the narrative. We also dig into a new ACRL initiative called Project Outcome, which was adapted from an effort by the Public Library Association to develop an online toolkit that helps libraries demonstrate how their programs and initiatives are adding value to the community. Okay, Mary Ellen, thanks for joining us today on the Authority File podcast. It's great to have you here. So it's conference season, and ACRL 2019 is coming up in April, the 10th through the 13th in Cleveland. Recasting the narrative is sort of the broad theme of the event, and I'm wondering if you could discuss that theme a little bit in terms of what is the new narrative and what's happening in the industry that's necessitating these new perspectives on academic librarianship.
Yeah, well, first, it's great to be here. I always enjoy visiting the Choice office, Bill, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk about the ACRL conference, which we're really excited about. So recasting the narrative really has a number of meanings to it. First of all, it contains a nod to our host city of Cleveland, which has really undergone a revitalization in recent years. So, and then it also speaks to the rapidly changing environment in which academic libraries operate. Today's academic libraries are really vibrant and fast-moving cultural places, but they're working to further the mission of the institution in which it resides. You know, librarians are partners in educating students, contributing to faculty research and scholarship, and are leaders in assessment and continuous improvement on campus. So recasting that narrative is about what it means to be an academic library professional in the 21st century, adapting and leading the transition to the new roles that come up.
Okay, great. So I imagine all of that is excellent fodder for conference programming, and I'm wondering, how those concepts are generally showing up in the programming for the show next year.
Many of the programs are about social justice, critical information literacy, inclusive recruitment practices, accessible resources, organizational and change, cross-campus conversations, mentoring, leadership development. We have over 500 programs, and the theme informed many of them. There's probably going to be something for everybody if they come to ACRL 2019.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that with the, with the recasting the narrative theme, that the programming is edging a little bit farther, to be a little bit more on the sharp edge of what's going on in academic librarianship? Has the conference sort of moved into more of a forward-thinking role in that respect, or has it always been like that?
Well, I think we've always tried to provide programming that will both help librarians do their jobs better, their day-to-day work, as well as pointing out the changes that are going on in higher ed and the general environment so they can be prepared for the future and be ready to pivot and transition.
Right. Excellent. Okay. The keynote speakers, as usual, are looking really good. I'm wondering if you could talk about them a little bit and how they fit into the theme for next year.
Yeah, I think we have a great lineup that people will really enjoy. First of all, we've got Michelle Norris, who many of you know, your listeners will know, is one of the most trusted voices in American journalism, having hosted NPR's All Things Considered. And then she created the Race Card Project, which was an initiative to foster a wider conversation about race in America. And she's written a family memoir, The Grace of Silence, that unearths long hidden family secrets that raise complicated questions about her legacy. She really does a great job at sparking dialogue on current events, social issues, and the power to make change. I saw her recently speak at another higher ed conference this fall, and she was just dynamite. She got a standing ovation. So
Awesome.
I'm really excited to see her interact with the ACRL conference participants. But then the next speaker is also good. Viet Thanh Nguyen is written The Sympathizer, which won the Pulitzer Prize. He grew up as a refugee in America during the Vietnam War. And he correctly noticed that most of the movies and books about the war focused on Americans, and we didn't really pay too much attention to the war experience for the Vietnamese citizens. So he was inspired by this lack of representation to write a book about the war from the Vietnamese perspective. So his book offers insights into that experience of refugees and poses important questions about how we portray victims and adversaries in war. It's a great read. My book club read it, so I highly recommend it.
We'll have to check that one out.
Yeah. And then, of course, not to leave out Alison Bechdel, who is a beloved cartoonist with the comic strip Dykes to Watch Out For. And from her strip was born the now famous Bechdel test, which measures gender bias in film. Her first graphic novel, Fun Home, a family tragic comic, addresses complicated issues of the dysfunctional family life, sexual orientation, gender roles, and suicide. Not easy topics, but so she really pushed the boundaries in the forms of memoir and comics, and her work was adapted into a Tony Award-winning Broadway musical.
Great.
So quite the lineup.
Exactly. Yeah, looking forward to that. So the conference is pretty much all put together at this point, I imagine. Anything you can share in terms of behind the scenes anecdotes or planning anecdotes, and what it was like putting the conference together this year?
Well, we have a great team. Trevor Dawes is the conference chair, and he puts together a great team of member leaders to vet the conference program proposals. And then our crackerjack, Margot Conahan and Tori Andrela, manage the other support side of the conference and leadership and coming up with new things. So one of the content new things we're going to try is, instead of just static poster sessions that people bring in from their big printers, we're going to actually have interactive screens.
Oh,
and
nice.
So we think that will provide a more engaging experience for people with these touch screens and digital displays, make it easier to archive the presentations and have them available after conference. So we're excited about that.
That's cool, yeah.
And then just fun things, Cleveland Convention Center. First of all, Cleveland has a lot to offer, but the Convention Center has a farm on site at the Convention Center that I was able to go visit, and they have their own herbs. They have their own chickens, bees, goats, and pigs. The eggs are used at the Convention Center by the catering service, as well as the honey. So, you're getting really sustainable products. And then, of course, the newest addition are the goats, who are all named after the cheeses. So we have Chevy and Emma and, of course, Brie. So that's fun. The all-conference party is going to be at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I think
Excellent.
everybody will enjoy visiting. We're going to have a reception at the Cleveland Public Library for our speakers. And, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we're also going to have a silent disco. So if you've never experienced that, you've got to come by and try a silent disco.
Oh, is that where everybody wears the headphones?
Yes,
That's
yes. And so you just get to watch people dancing,
Dance.
but you can't hear anything
Right.
unless you put the headphones on. So it's quite
that
fun.
sounds like fun, yeah. Another initiative that ACRL is undertaking recently is what you're calling Project Outcome. Can you talk a little bit about what that is? What was its inspiration? and how it's being adapted for ACRL's membership and what it's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, one of the things that we recognize librarians need to do is demonstrate that the programs and services they are delivering are of value to the institution. Are we helping students learn better or graduate faster or stay in school? Are we helping faculty be more productive? So Project Outcome was developed by the Public Library Association. It's a free online toolkit designed to help public libraries understand and share the impact of their library programs and services by providing simple surveys and an easy-to-use process for measuring and analyzing outcomes. We've talked a lot over the years about we count things. Well, counting things doesn't make any difference unless you can show we've made a change. That outcome is so important. So the libraries that participate are provided with resources for training and support so that they can do these surveys and have their results and use those to demonstrate their value to their broader community. The surveys are standardized so that not only can libraries use them themselves, but then they can share the data and aggregate their outcome data and analyze trends by service topic, program type over time, and compare themselves nationally with other institutions that have done this. So that's all about public libraries. How did ACRL get involved? Well, our public library colleagues are just down the hall from us at 50 East, 40 East Huron, and they told us that they had more than 100 academic librarians that had registered with the public library Project Outcome, so that clearly there was an interest in these assessment tools. And there are a number of assessment tools in higher ed, so why were they coming to this one? Why, what was the interest? Mm-hmm. So we held some online discussions with academic libraries about, was there an interest in designing a project outcome for academic libraries? Did they see there being a need for it? We had discussions with our board of directors, and it really was interesting that even some of the very large research institutions said yes, they would use a tool like this because A, it was hard to have time to develop all the assessment tools that they needed. B, to have a standardized set of tools would be great. And 3, they liked contributing to the body of knowledge about how library programs and services were making a difference. So. Right. The board approved us going ahead to develop this product, and we are well underway and hope to have it launched at the ACRL conference this spring.
Oh, good. So, it sounds like you've had a task force in place developing the surveys, and so it looks like they're coalescing around 7 areas: undergraduate instruction, events and programs, research support, teaching support, digital collections, library spaces, and library technology. How did these 7 areas kind of bubble up to the top?
Well, you're right to say task force. Of course, we put a task force of members together that represented various constituencies, as well as members of our Value of Academic Libraries committees, our student learning committees, our statistics editorial board, experts on academic library assessment and post-secondary assessment, because we really wanted this to be meaningful. Right. So they started work and met for the first time in March of 2018. And by June, they were sort of coalescing around those domains that you mentioned. And they also, we had 54 institutions volunteer to field test some of the draft questions and things. And we received over 11,000 survey responses to this. So we really are seeing how positive the response to this was. And the field testers attended a virtual meeting last month to discuss the results and recommend changes. So I think those domains are going to change slightly over time. In fact, the task force is meeting this Monday to kind of refine the domains and things like that. And then we'll see what the final version is. Each domain will have 6 standard questions, 4 quantitative outcome-based questions and 2 open-ended questions. And then in the survey management tool, users can also add up to 3 other open-ended questions if they want to get to more specific local services. Okay.
Going forward, do you see, has there been some discussion around access to the broader results of as the surveys sort of get traction and more people take the surveys and participate in the program? How will to the extent that you know this, but I mean, how will libraries be able to see the results across,
There's going to be a national dashboard. There'll
Okay.
be an online database that they can access. So if libraries choose to share the aggregate results, I mean, none of it will be personally identifiable to the
Yep.
library patron that completed the survey. But if libraries choose to serve the results, they'll be shared. And this is a tool that ACRL has invested in to make it free to anybody that would like to use it.
You just heard from Mary Ellen Davis, the Executive Director of the ACRL. This concludes the first of our two-part series about new initiatives the ACRL is pursuing and its 2019 conference in Cleveland in April. Be sure to join us for the next episode, where we'll talk about how the ACRL is making an even bigger commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion within the association itself and how it's supporting its membership to do the same.
Since October, based on our new core commitment, we've also kind of taken a look at some of our internal practices. And so the board had another working group that looked at our call for volunteers. Was the language in the volunteer call as inclusive as it needs to be? Could we make it better to make sure it clear? Because associations are often looked at as perhaps too cliquey, or you have to know somebody. So we wanted to make sure we had an open and transparent process.
Find all of the episodes of The Authority File on your favorite podcast app or on our website, choice360.org. Just click on the librarianship dropdown. On choice360.org, you'll also find information on Choice's entire product platform, including Choice Reviews, CC Advisor, Choice Webinars, resources for college libraries, our white papers, and a whole lot more. A great way to keep up with the Authority File is to join the Choice Authority File Facebook group, which you can access via the Choice Reviews Facebook page. As a member of the group, you can give us feedback, suggest podcast participants, chat with other listeners, and submit new topic ideas. Sponsorship and advertising for the Authority File podcast are handled by Choice's advertising manager, Pam Marino, and the production and editing are done by Choice's digital media specialist, Mark Dirks. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.